Welcome to yet another live episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report 485. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters, um, Gail from nyfights.com, as well as Gail Falkenthal on boxing, as well as Daniel from 4Boxing News and the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gents?
Well, we got a good week of boxing behind us to talk about and a very busy month ahead.
Indeed. I may do a little bit of venting, just a bit of a warning. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box
Can't
Report,
wait.
Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, etc., talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. Um, if you wish to email us, you can do so at come on. You can do so at P4pboxing at p4pboxing.com. If you check the description, you can find links to catch Pound for Pound Boxer Report, all over social media, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Twitter page where you can find us on Twitter. Because like Daniel, I refuse to call it X. Links to where to find it on IG. If you wish to donate, you can do so. Cash Me and PayPal donation links in the description. Whether it's $2, $5, $1, $2, $5, whatever you wish to contribute, we will be grateful. It'll help the overall production behind the scene. And last but not least, if you're into fragrance, for those who may follow me, particularly on TikTok, not TikTok, but IG, and Blue Sky. You may know that I'm a bit of a fragrance head. During the break last week, yours truly in Pound for Pound Boxer Report, we secured an official affiliate with Nazar Fragrances, Nazar. If you use the code MICHAELWP4P, let me repeat that, MICHAELWP4P, you can get 15% off on all things Nazar Fragrances, men's fragrances, women's fragrances, body oils. If you're a fragrance head, masculine leaning, unisex, feminine leaning, Nazar Fragrances really got you covered. So again, if you use the code MICHAELWP4P, you will get 15% off on all things Nazar, that is Nazar Fragrances. And I'm going to work behind the scenes to re-up the 15% code on Nazar Fragrances. I hope to get that finalized next week. Let's get things going. Recapping pretty a highly anticipated weekend of fights, right? Let's start with the most talked about fight that took place in Japan, Tokyo Dome, and to be specific, in Tokyo, Japan. Naoya Inoue, Junto Nakatani. Inoue defending his undisputed 122-pound belts. Inoue got the decision by way of unanimous decision to retain the titles. Nakatani got off to a bit of a slow start. He began to come on at the midpoint, but anyway, as he's shown in the past, notably the first fight with Nonito Donaire, when he's really pressed, he has that it factor, that championship quality, that greatness quality, that he adjusts and he rallied, and he did so during the championship rounds to really see. I had an 8-4 on my card. Assess the fight, Gil, but the reason I'm kind of tease venting is because in the aftermath, it seemed, at least on my social media feeds, particularly on Twitter, that there was a lot of scrutiny, if you will, towards Naoya Inoue. Folks saying that he was overrated. Folks were disappointed in his performance. Folks were immediately saying that Jesse Bam Rodriguez would not only beat him but knock him out. I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense. It's people being reactionary, and I wonder whether people have really paid attention to Naoya Inoue and how good he is. To me, this was high quality boxing by both men. Inoue was just better. And if you think, as good as Bam is, that he just going to stroll over there to Japan and just roll through him, y'all out your rabbit ass mind.
I believe a lot of the reaction was a function of a lot more American eyes on this fight than in previous Japanese contests and in previous Inoue fights. This was highly hyped, publicized, talked about among boxing media. And so I think we had a lot of people tuning in that have not watched Naoya Inoue much, if at all, or recently. Let's remember also the ring walk was a little later than we are normally accustomed to. So that means for the majority of the United States, it was at a decent morning hour. On the East Coast, he walked at practically 8:30. West Coast, a little bit earlier. So that's a far cry from the normal sort of 3:30, 3:45 on the West Coast, 6:45 on the East Coast. So a lot more eyes on this fight. And if people who are familiar with Inoue and Nakatani misinterpreted our enthusiasm, thinking they were going to see Hagler Hearns, of course they're disappointed. Setting expectations is really important when it comes to the fan experience. And if boxing journalists and so-called influencers, YouTubers misled them in that way, then that's on us. And let's admit it. It wasn't Hagler Hearns. It wasn't ever going to be anything like that. This was a fight that had a lot of nuance in watching it, a lot of craft, a lot of tension. Some fight fans like me love that sense of tension when you're watching a fight, anticipating who's going to strike first, what's going to happen next, watching two men in the ring, or women for that matter, sizing each other up, the feints, the flinches, the ring generalship, the discussion in the corner, all of that comes into it. For the fan who is not a regular watcher, and I'm going to use the word casual without it being pejorative, we need casual fans in boxing. We need them. Many of them become more dedicated fans, but even still, eyeballs are eyeballs. I welcome them. What I mean to say when I use that word is that it are people who are not regular consumers of boxing, especially at this level. So they're watching it thinking, there's not all that much action per moment in this fight. They're not wrong about that. So if that's what they wanted to see, we're going to talk about a few fights later from the card later in the evening on the same day. They would have given them more than a dose of that kind of action they wanted to look for. I thought it was fascinating to watch. The thrill a minute, no. You're looking at something completely different. And if you add in the stakes involved, then the watch becomes much more interesting. Nakatani did get off to a very careful start. Trainer Rudy Hernandez, as the first few rounds rolled by, told him, you got to step it up, you got to throw hands, you got to engage. You know what? To Nakatani's credit, he did. He did step it up, and he did start winning in the middle rounds. And by the time he got to the ninth round, he tagged Inoue, buzzed him pretty good. Inoue's trainer, who is his father, Shingo, had to get on top of his son and tell him by the time it reached the 11th and 12th rounds, you need these rounds. You need to win these final two rounds. And that's what a champion does, because Inoue did win those two rounds on all three cards, and it saved him from a draw. It saved him from a draw in that fight. So props to him. He came through. He dug down when he needed it. And my prediction for this fight earlier in the week was that the difference was going to be Inoue's resilience. Nakatani has never been knocked down. I don't think he's ever been seriously hurt in a fight. Inoue has by Luis Neri, by Ramon Cardenas, and the beating he took at the hands of Nonito Donaire, even though he won. When you know for a fact that something like that can happen in a fight that puts you in peril and you get off the deck and you overcome it, then you've got that, that armor of scar tissue around you, mental scar tissue, that gives you that resilience so that when your trainer says you have got to win these rounds, you win those rounds. Or that hey, if I get knocked down, I've gotten up before, I can do it again. That extra percentage of confidence is frequently the difference in a 50-50 fight, and I'm firmly convinced that was the difference on Sunday or Saturday in Japan.
Generally, I agree with your point on the talk afterwards. I guess, now go to you, Daniel. There are folks out here who profess themselves to be hardcore fans who are very loud, but when you hear them talk, when you saw their analysis, when you heard their analysis, I question how much of a serious, quote unquote, serious fan you are. Particularly when it came to their analysis of Inoue. They talk as if this guy is simply a seek and destroy guy, and he's never been that case, despite his high knockout percentage and the highlights that we see. Right? I guess what I'm saying is, don't portray yourself as a serious hardcore fan, but when you speak, it's a lot of style and no substance, and dose with a little bit of ignorance. And to Gail's point, um, some of the criticism came off as, oh, they're bashing this guy just because he's from Japan. A little bit of xenophobia, dare I say.
It's a combination of those factors, and we have to take into account of the fact that a lot of the people that looked at it also are pretty ignorant when it comes to the business side, when it comes to, especially in the lower weight classes. Though most of the ones I watched here, that, like I said, on this side of the shore, particularly in the US, don't exactly know that the base of the lower weight classes is either going to be Latin America or Southeast or far Southeast Asia and Japan.
That's right.
So they don't understand the fact that when it comes from 105 to 122, the promoter that you're hearing about is not Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, Al Heyman. The man's name is Mr. Honda. That is almost the if and or but when it comes to the lower weight classes if you want to make some real good money. And that's the other factor to it. That's the ignorance of the fact that they expect, oh, you have to come to the US to make money. This fight made $64 million overall. That's kind of the
For context, let me chime in, Daniel. Fourth highest gate in boxing history.
Yep.
Let that sink in.
And not only that, you got to consider to account the scale of Japan's economy. Those are gigantic numbers. And you got to think about it also the venue. This is the Tokyo Dome. Outside of the baseball teams, outside of baseball, the only other major combat sports that has the Tokyo Dome as a regular tenant per se is pro wrestling. It's New Japan Pro Wrestling. They have their Wrestle Kingdom shows every January. And they can barely scratch the surface to what this fight did. That's another thing. Like, there's a reason why Inoue is willing to not come to these shores, because he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. Now, when it comes to
Yet,
lucky to say again, I'm sorry.
yet there was a litany of folks saying that for a Bam, a fight between Inoue and Bam, that is Inoue is the one who needs to come to the United States. Are you kidding me? Given the gate, given the fact that he probably made close to $30 million, given the fact that in his last fight he made over 25 million, he is the cash cow. He is that dude in that weight range. And you telling me he needs to come to the United States to fight Bam? They talk like he's never been here before to fight.
Yeah, that's it. That's ignorance of the career. Like, be like, you don't, okay, if you paid attention anyway the first time, you didn't know that for the past few years he was co-promoted by Top Rank, and Top Rank did have it here. Now, would Top Rank have probably done a better job of promoting him? Probably they would have, if their television situation was a bit more grounded instead of what it is at this state. But that's neither here or there. When it comes to this particular fight, Nakatani's going to be kicking himself for not starting sooner. Because once you see how this fight played out, especially the first rounds, there was a lot of respect for each other's power. And once Nakatani started going, you can tell how this fight could have been more of a back and forth. And let's not forget, Nakatani was coming in fairly strong. It wasn't just the fact that Inoue's corner told him he has to win the next 2 rounds. There was also a cut in the 11th round. Right, I think it was above the right eye or left eye. I forgot which one, but it was right above that area.
Cut in the 10th round, and in the 11th round, Inoue hit him with a vicious uppercut that fractured his orbital bone.
Mm-hmm. And that changed the complete momentum of the fight.
I will step in to say that no, Nakatani's orbital bone was not broken for trainer Julian Chua. He did get he did go to the hospital. He did get checked out. He did not suffer any orbital bone injury.
Oh, okay, because initial report said he suffered it. Thanks for the update.
Yeah, no, there's also was confusion, obviously, with the other fight that we're going to talk about later on.
Right, and there was no break there either. So both guys got away clean.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. He did get cut. That cut did change a lot of the momentum in that fight. And it did make Nakatani a little bit more skittish, probably because the blood was getting into his eye. So when you have that going on, it does change the trajectory when it comes to the fight. And ultimately, they said that, along with the slow start, they cost him into it. But Nakatani did not get washed. It wasn't a shutout. Well, I've seen some people say that Inoue should have been given a shutout fight. Like, if you did that, then you're Mr. Magoo. Nakatani more than proved himself to at least be worthy to be talked about in the same conversation as Inoue. And I personally hope, I know Turkey has other ideas, but I would definitely love for these two to hit the Tokyo Dome again, or maybe the Saitama Super Arena on New Year's Eve, which is pretty much the Cinco de Mayo / Mexican Independence Day when it comes to Japanese combat sports.
I wouldn't mind seeing these two run it back, but it's not going to happen. I mean, running it back immediately, but it's not going to happen. As you noted, now goes back to you, Gail. There are already talks for a fight between Inoue and Bam, especially if Bam is successful in his upcoming fight at 118 pounds. There's talk of a fight between Inoue and Bam January, February next year. in Japan. Um, for those who keep talking that Bam would just go up to 122 and just have his way with Inoue, it looks like they're going to get their chance. Have you heard any update in the roughly 72 hours since the end of Inoue and Nakatani Gale?
Well, let's be clear on the timeline. First of all, Inoue made it very clear, as did his father trainer, that he is burnt out. He has had 5 fights in the space of a year and a few months as an undisputed champion. That is unprecedented. And some of those have been pretty rough fights. So when he said he needed a break, he indicated that he was possibly going to take the entire rest of this calendar year off. And nobody's going to begrudge him for that. Not one bit. But that puts the timeline quite a bit off further. Now, we all know money talks, but Inoue's big generational wealth. So whether a big fat payday in Riyadh makes any difference, it might not. It might not. And he is aging. He is past the top of the bell curve, still a phenomenal fighter. But at that age, rest becomes more important, and he would be smart to take it. In the meantime, Bam is going to stay busy. His upcoming fight, going up to 118, is kind of a fight to give him another goal to keep him busy. He really wants to unify and become undisputed at 115. He says, Bam claims he's going to see how he feels at 118, see how it goes. But his full intention is then to jump back down to 115, try to get these other guys with the belts on board, unify, and then go back up. The question becomes the progression in the weight classes. And Inoue has always been just a couple of extra steps ahead. Now, it wouldn't be too surprising if Inoue takes the rest of 2026 off. He comes back in 2027, and that's when he moves up to featherweight. If that's the case, he may be a slight bit beyond the grasp of Bam Rodriguez. Having said that, how many fighters have we seen lately at the top of the sport who take a chance on themselves by jumping up in weight and being successful? Terrence Crawford, another fighter who fought this weekend we're going to talk about. Bam Rodriguez does strike me as the kind of guy who will bet on himself and say, yeah, sure, I'll move up, 2 weight classes to get a shot at this guy before he retires. But we're going to need to let it play out. There's so many variables that can happen in the next months. And hey, Bam's got to win some fights before we can even start talking about this. But obviously, everybody is very excited. Everybody's sort of frothing at the mouth to see this get made. For me, I do not need to see a rematch. One and done. We're good. I think Nakatani will learn a lot from this fight. He needs to come back. And if Inoue is idle the rest of the year, depending on what the mandatory situations are, he may need to vacate a belt here and there. And hey, Junto Nakatani could go after one of those belts if that does happen.
That would make a lot of sense. Number one, I've heard Bam talk too much about this fight, about fighting Inoue. B2, Turkey Alashik, he's been chirping too much about wanting to make this fight, and potential negotiations already set place. Too much money on the table for both men to pass up. So a Bam, and I hear you wanting to take care of business, want to become undisputed at 115, but financially, it makes a lot of sense for him to get the fight at 118. If he wins, eventually fight Inoue at 122 pounds. I mean, you're talking a record purse for Bam. Would that play out? Of course, there's a lot of work for him to do in order to make that happen. But too much money on the table, and a lot of chirping's been happening already. That's one. A1, B2, C3 comments from B Marsh. Him and I go back way back in these boxing social media streets, over a decade. So I want to read some comments of him. He says, "What up to myself, to you, Gil and Daniel." Um, Indeed, he says what he also says. No doubt it's been a minute. Good to hear official boxing talk. He said the first fight that he saw of Inoue was when he demolished Omar Narvaez in 2 rounds. That was back in end of 2014. I believe that was when Inoue went up from 108 to 115 to beat a Narvaez who had previously 20 title defenses at junior bantamweight, destroyed him in 2 rounds. He also said that only criticism I have of him is his tenure at 115. He didn't fight Chocolatito, Gallo, or Rungvisai. They all had straps at the time. He didn't unify with any of them. I hear you, B Marsh. Here's the pushback. Inoue wanted to fight Chocolatito, and you know about this, Gail. When he came to United States for that Superfly card, his intent for doing that was to try to land a fight with Chocolatito. And brother B Marsh, Inoue sent an official contract for Chocolatito. Chocolatito turned it down. He wanted a rematch. He felt that a rematch with Codras was more financially beneficial than a fight with Inoue. So I hear you. I hear the argument about him not fighting Gallo and Rungvisai, but when it comes to Roman Gonzalez specifically, Inoue has wanted to fight Roman Gonzalez going back to his days when he first won a world belt at 108 pounds. And when he first came to the United States, his intent was to get Chocolatito in the ring. Unfortunately, circumstances led to that fight not happening. Any additional comments on this, on Inoue, Nakatani, or reply to B Marsh before we move on to other fights?
The one other thing we need to add that was in the way is the feeling of Mr. Honda, Kiko Honda and Taiken Promotions, that he would not pit two of his top fighters against each other, that Taiken fighters did not fight each other versus Top Rank, who will throw their top guys in against each other, and it's, kill or be killed, let the best man win. That is not the Japanese way. So that was always going to be a big problem. Not fighting El Gallo, I could see that, especially because Juan Francisco Estrada was way farther along in his career path and accomplishments than Naoya Inoue. So at the point that he would have fought Estrada, that's a younger, less experienced guy, going up the guy at, depending on how you felt, that was at the top of the division. So yeah, disappointing, but listen, during that era, we got some spectacular fights among all of these guys and the ancillary players. And listen, at that point that Inoue came to America for that Superfly card, I didn't care who was standing in the ring against him. I was going to be there. I was going to be up close. And I just wanted to see him with my own eyes. And you know what? Antonio Nieves, he did what he could. He gave a good effort. But yeah, Inoue steamrolled over him, and it was spectacular.
Indeed. On the undercard of Inoue Nakatani, we saw Naoya's younger brother Takuma put the WBC belt at 118 pounds on the line against Kazuto Ioka. For folks, again, who seriously watched for boxing worldwide, Ioka's resume cannot be questioned, right? 4-division world champion, future Hall of Famer. But in this fight, Daniel, Inoue was far superior. Put him down twice in round 2. I felt there was moments that he could have stopped him if he really stepped on the gas. I guess the overall thing for me is that when it comes to Kazuto Ioka, he's not close to the fighter that he was. And look, time waits for no man, right? and it looks like that Kazuto Ioka has seen his best days, and that him, his team, his family needs to have serious discussions about the future of his career, because he cannot compete with the elite fighters anymore. 115, 118. And it was clearly evidenced in this fight as Takuma, just overall faster, stronger, bigger, harder hitter. And we're talking about a Takuma Inoue, who's not known for being a big puncher, but he was just outclassed, outboxed, and overpowered in all areas.
This one hurt to watch.
It
This
was
one did
sad. It was sad to
this
watch.
this one hurt to watch because the phrase "getting old overnight" that unfortunately really came to the key with Kazuto, because you could literally see him and Takuma fight at two very different human speeds.
Right.
And even though even though Kazuto did get knocked down twice, even though you could tell that Takuma was not only faster, he had better timing, his footwork was better, he had better combination threat. Kazuto did not give up. He did his best to try to do it because he was trying to make history. He was trying to become, I think, the first Japanese fighter to win belts in 5 different weight classes. Unfortunately, there comes a time where father time does catch up with you, and Kazuto has been in some wars. And this was his last chance to try to upset the apple cart a little bit. If you think about it, towards what the plans were for Inoue, and maybe lure him into a fight at 118 versus Naoya Inoue, because in a way that would have been a proper passing of the torch. Because as far as the money, as far as the fame, the top guy in Japan before Naoya Inoue, there was Kazuto Ioka. And it's sad to see it go out this way, but Father Time is undefeated, and he claimed another victory now. From the sentiment, from what it looks like, more than likely he'll he was probably going to retire, because almost everybody else that he can make a big fight for it is either tied to Titan Promotions or are themselves way past their prime and getting the fight over somebody like Gaio Strada at this stage does not do you any favors. So I hope, like I said, Costa sits down, he looks at the situation. I hope he calls it a career. He is a very charismatic personality, so you could definitely see him try to be like a fight analyst in Japan, not only for boxing, maybe for K1 as well. So there is a good career for Costa afterwards, but looking at this, it's time. It's time. Like, the game has literally passed him by.
Absolutely. The question for me is, Gail, Takuma Inoue, right? What's the future here for him, right? He's coming off of arguably the two high profile wins of his career, right? This win over future Hall of Famer in Ioka, and before that, Nasukawa. If Inoue isn't the most popular fighter athlete in Japan, a strong argument is that Nasukawa is, right? Takuma beat him rather comfortably, but with Nasukawa's recent stoppage over a Gaio, he puts himself back in position to engage in a rematch. Then you have Tatsumi, who's a champion in recess, WBA version. He beat Takuma, right? A couple fights back. So there are fights there, when it comes to Takuma Inoue, particularly domestically in Japan, where do you see him going?
I see him heading straight for a big fight with Bam Rodriguez. If his brother isn't available, he's the next obvious guy, assuming that that Bam, if he has any trouble lining up those fights, he's still struggling to get at 115. Well, heck.
But he has a fight supposedly coming up against Vargas.
He does. That's at 118. That's to capture a third division title. He claims his intention, if it is available to him, is to come back down to 115 for one more shot at becoming undisputed. And he would be the first person to do it at 115 in the four-belt era. He wants that legacy notch, right? He wants that. He also knows, though, that he's got to consider his options if he can't make that happen. And he's still making 115. The last I heard him interviewed in the last week or two, he said he was still able to do it. But, he has admitted that having that little bit of leeway at 118 has been feeling pretty good. Should he decide he wants to stay there, well, who's got a belt at 118? Well, one Takuma Inoue. And wouldn't it be an interesting little appetizer to fight the big man's brother before he gets his shot potentially at Naoya Inoue? I believe it may not be the next fight. It might not even be the fight after that, but I do think that fight's going to happen. And maybe sooner than we think.
Interesting. Let's move on to some recap some other action. We talked about Inoue Nakatani, the big card over in Japan, returning back to the United States. David Benavidez, right? Champion at 175, moved up to 200. Read some more comments here. Let's pop it in right quick. B. Mar says that yes, indeed, he enjoyed Little Man Inoue, the Little Man tourney on HBO when Inoue came to the United States. Another comment here saying that Bam would be a great fight for both. Inoue and Bam are two most widely known names in the lighter weights, and I think Inoue still has still got some tread on the tires. B. Marsh also follow up by saying Bam versus Inoue. Little bro is the fight Bam needs for the big payday, legacy, as well as moving up in weights.
There it is.
So moving on to Las Vegas, right? David Benavidez moving up from 175 to 200, fighting Zurdo Ramirez. Their history between the two, they're friends outside the ring. They sparred numerous times over the years, right? But the reason I partially titled this is a bad man, Benavidez, because when he's focused, he's really on his game, right? He is extremely hard to beat, and he went up to the higher weights, and it was child's play with Zurdo. He maintained his speed, he maintained his conditioning, and from the opening moments of the fight, you basically knew this was his in the bag, and he put on a show. Eventually stopped him in round 6, and for those who were disappointed in Inoue's performance against Nakatani, there was a reprieve in the way that Benavidez looked against Zurdo. Fantastic, dominant performance by the other monster in boxing, David Benavidez.
It was a pleasure to watch him at work. I did believe that Benavidez would win. I did not think he would put a thorough and complete beatdown on Gilberto.
Belt to ass, Gail. That's what that was.
Telling you, there was a couple of slow rounds in the beginning, and then David decided to go to work, and there was absolutely nothing Ramirez could do. He stood in there very bravely. His eye was a mess from about the end of the third round to the end of the fight. But he put himself right in front of David, and what was apparent, we knew that Benavidez would have the edge in footwork and hand speed. I did not think in a million years he'd have that much advantage. over Zurdo. Zurdo is a flat-footed fighter. He uses, all of that girth to leverage punching power. He's a classic power puncher in that way. David is using speed versus the power from the foundation up, and that's where he could run rings around Ramirez. They are friends, and they embraced after the fight, and I know that David was very concerned about him afterward, but during the fight, you know what? That friendship got set aside. He compartmentalized beautifully. He did not hesitate to put a beat down on a man he considers a good friend, and that's the way it's got to be. I do think that the smart thing for Zurdo was when he took the first hit and he was really starting to get battered in that fourth round, he did something that it was a veteran move. And I don't think enough fighters do this when they get in trouble. He stepped back and took a knee to stop the carnage right at that point. Unfortunately, he was already too damaged. And then when he took that second straight punch to the right eye, which was already in bad shape, I mean, you could feel how much that hurt.
He took it all out of him.
He was facing media row when that happened, and he put his hand immediately up to his face in pain, stepped back, took a knee, and to his credit, Thomas Taylor, in my opinion, the finest referee in boxing in the world, he was right there on him. He quickly took a look. And he didn't even administer the count. He waved the fight off because he knew that Zurdo was going to need medical attention and fast. It is amazing to me that there was no broken orbital bone. We all assumed that. Now, I believe that he does have a broken nose, but not the orbital bone. So as things go, isn't quite as bad. But that was a good stoppage. It needed to happen quickly. And as you can imagine, we did not see him after the fight was done. He exited the ring. He walked out under his own power, but I cannot even imagine how much that had to hurt because he's a pretty tough guy. That was quite the coming out performance of David Benavidez, and he made himself the name, hopefully the heir apparent to the Cinco de Mayo and Mexican tradition here in the Western United States, and particularly in Las Vegas on those important dates, May 5th, September 16th. I will say this before I close here. I heard several people report or comment, in a packed arena, a big crowd. No, that was not the case. And that is the one thing that concerns me. The entire upper bowl of the T-Mobile Arena was curtained off. Not a single seat sold upstairs, and it was not full downstairs either. I still haven't gotten an attendance figure. The attendance for the Inoue Cardenas fight last year on Cinco de Mayo weekend, that was a Sunday night. It had been a very busy fight weekend. I could give them a bit of a pass for not having a packed house for that fight. And again, smaller weight divisions, that's the American bias against the smaller weight divisions. Now I'm gonna slap some sense in all of you to realize those are the fun fights to watch. That's another discussion. I'm not for that fight last year, it was just a hair over 9,000 in the arena. I'm not sure we had that many this year. That's ridiculous. This card turned out to be extremely entertaining. There were some of those rock'em sock'em action fights on the card. And to have it so poorly attended is something of concern. I think that David Benavidez won't have that problem moving forward, but this fight was poorly promoted. I'm not sure what was going on. I'm sure there are also going to be 30 or 40,000 people who claim they were there in the months and years to come. But trust me, there were maybe just 8,000 plus of us in that arena on Saturday night. And what a shame that was.
Read off some more comments here. Lobster 11 says that Benavidez is very dangerous. Lightning speed, deep gas tank. In this fight with Zurdo, he showed that at that weight, the power is legit. Zurdo had a horrible game plan, though, heavy bag with legs. B-Mar says that Zurdo looked out of shape, soft, not taking anything away from Benavidez. He looked great at Cruiser, but Zurdo just didn't look in good shape at all. Um, Lobster 11 says, hopefully after this performance, David can become more of a draw. Um, B. Marshall, in your reaction to what you just said is shocking. That there were plenty of empty seats. Um, Going to you, Daniel, you can chime in as well, Gail. A lot of talk of what the future holds for Benavidez, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ioka chimed in and said he's ready for the smoke. Um, you had folks suggesting that Benavidez should potentially move up to fight Usyk at heavyweight. I don't like that, not right now. For me, though, the fight I want to see Benavidez in, assuming he can get back down to 175 pounds comfortably, I still want to see Benavidez fight Zurdo.
I think you mean Benavidez fight Bivol.
Benavidez fight Bivol, excuse me.
Yeah. But here's the interesting part of it when you look at it when it comes to this fight now. A lot of people probably were surprised at the hand speed that they saw. This is the first time seeing David Benavidez. If you pay attention to the story of David Benavidez, he used boxing as a weight loss measure because he was pretty big, according to his family. And he used boxing as a way to get in shape. Is the main way he got to super middleweight. And even then, when you got into that point, if you watched him, you were questioning how he made that weight in a healthy sense. But it was just a fight where as soon as David's hand speed became apparent, it was over. Zurdo is a tough customer. He's steady in that area. But one thing that has plagued him throughout his career, unfortunately, he is a bit flat-footed and does rely more of his toughness to walk him through because of this fight. But may have been a little bit overconfident based on the fact that obviously famously they pounded in the fact that they had 200 rounds together in sparring. But once that hand speed was evident, it was pretty much over. And one smart thing that Zurdo did was take that knee and put his eye in that area. Because before the fight, he did mention he only had probably 2 fights left after this, if not counting this one as well now. Because he figured, I'll have probably 1 fight at heavyweight and I'll call it a career. He's already thinking in that area. And if you're already thinking that area, you don't want to get any more damage than what he did. I'm still surprised that orbital bone did not break. And I'll be honest in that area. But when it comes to Benavidez, luckily this would be the fight that cements him as a stable where you can put him Cinco de Mayo weekend, put him Mexican Wednesday weekend, and draw a crowd. Because that was the main flaw, unfortunately, when it comes to this card. The hardcores were going to watch it, but these 2 weekends, particularly in the U.S., they're the weekends for, let's put it bluntly, for the casuals. And unfortunately, because obviously there was no Canelo on the card, you were not going to attract the casuals that come with him. And hopefully that does change because this is a coming up party for Benavidez, who, remember, didn't come in to this fight going to full 200. So he can still make 175 for Bibbo because that is a fight that he wants. He still wants to fight with Canelo too, if those 2 parties can get in together. So
yeah, David's made very clear that Bivol's his target, without question. Let me add one more thing about the attendance, however. Las Vegas has completely transformed itself over the last decade, particularly the last 5 years or so, as a sports market. The Las Vegas teams at all levels, despite the crummy performance of the Raiders, are all major draws. The Golden Knights are roaring ahead in the NHL playoffs. They played on Friday night, Thursday night. their final game in the first round. They're packing the house. Those tickets are very hard to get and very expensive. You've got all the other ancillary sports in action. People are watching the new ballpark being built, and the upper deck infrastructure frame is already up there. Amazing to see it across the street from the MGM. Go figure. You had a lot of residencies and concerts in town. You know what? All of a sudden, there is so much competition for your entertainment and sports entertainment dollar because of the ballpark and the A's coming to town. The AAA team draws a really good crowd in Las Vegas.
And don't forget the Aces now.
You've got the Aces. You've got a women's pro volleyball team that draws. There's a small arena out in the suburban area of Henderson, Nevada. There's a little jewel box arena out there of about 7,000 capacity. They pack that thing. So you got a lot of stuff going on, and it's possible that there was just simply too much competition for the sports and entertainment dollar, in addition to just the intrinsic value or not of the fight card.
And as a side note, you said how sorry the Raiders are. Let me make a slight prediction here. I think the Raiders will be better this year than they've been.
It's a pretty low bar.
I'm just saying.
I will say, Mendoza,
they had a hell of a off. Put it this way, they had a hell of an NFL draft, and they've had a heck of an off season. Put it this way, I don't think they will be last. They won't be. They will not be last in the AFC West this year.
No, I agree. In fact, even Oscar De La Hoya, who is now, after many years of living in Southern California, is a full-time Las Vegas resident. He even got into a discussion during an interview about the arrival of Mendoza, a Latino quarterback in that city. Yeah, that's going to draw a lot of interest, a lot of fan interest, a lot of ticket sales and eyeballs. So that was a great move. And I still think, the Raiders, despite their record, the allure of getting to see a game at Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders are very much have a national identity, that's followed them from Oakland to LA and back to Oakland and over to Vegas. I mean, it kind of doesn't matter where they play. They've simply got that following that goes anywhere. So you've got that. Yeah, and once you also have Major League Baseball, oh, yes, let us remember now that there is very serious intentions to put an NBA expansion franchise there in Las Vegas and build yet another arena. So you want to know where the money is in Las Vegas? This is where it's all going.
Last fight before we move on to news and preview some fights for this upcoming weekend. Armando Resendiz, right? 168-pound champion. Got the belt as a result of Terrence Crawford being stripped, I believe. Made the first defense of that title, WBA version. Made the first defense against Jaime Munguia. And to a lot of people, Munguia has been kind of a disappointment. Well, not kind of a disappointment, basically over the last few years. But here's my question, Gil. What Munguia, I should say, won easy work. My question is, I got two of them. Where was this Munguia the last 3, 4, 5 years? B, was this fight of Munguia's marked improvement, or is Mendez kind of been mid all along?
I think you've got a little bit of everything, but there is no doubt that Munguia's switch in trainers to Eddie Reynoso after the Saras fight, the first one where he got knocked out, has made all the difference in the world. He has been training with Reynoso. Reynoso as we know, is a taskmaster. He focused on the basics with Munguia. He is a guy that you do drills over and over and over. He moved up here to San Diego to train with him in the gym that Canelo uses in the National City area. And Canelo was there assisting and offering advice, although he was ringside cheering on Munguia, who they've become very good friends after their fight, mentoring him. And he made it clear, listen, yeah, I made my observations, but Eddie Rudoso, Eddie is the one that trained him and got him into shape and got him ready for this fight. So this was only a second fight with Eddie. But after having bounced around and tried a few different trainers and, working with Eric Morales, who, Eric's a nice guy, but Eric did not have time for Munguia. It was absolutely one of those situations where, a lot of fighters want to switch up trainers after a loss, right? They've got to blame it on something. In this case, it was absolutely the right thing to do. I have not seen Jaime Munguia look that good since his upset to win at in the 154 division over Saddam Ali. It was phenomenal watching him. He could not have looked better. I've never seen him look that good. And it has re-energized him. He has truly reinvented himself. Now, yes, credit Eddie for the game plan, but Munguia had to put in the work. And he finally had someone there to make sure he put his nose to the grindstone. And I think once he got into that rhythm and that game plan, it made all the difference. I'm also going to shout out the owner of that gym, House of Boxing, San Diego. He's owned it for 30 years, started by his father, Carlos Barragan Jr. Carlos Barragan was the chief second in the ring. And Carlos is also a master observer of boxing. He's a phenomenal chief second. And he has worked a whole lot of fights now with Eddie. And he comes at it from a slightly different perspective, being a Mexican American. They have truly ended up being a good training team. So bravo to all three of them. They're now reinvigorated, very excited about the future. And I'm very excited to see Munguia again. I mean, of all the fighters on that card, I just could not have been more impressed with anyone, even with David Benavidez's performance. I knew he had that capacity. Munguia against Resendiz, I figured was going to be a, loser goes home kind of, sluggish fight. I was pleasantly surprised.
And upcoming, he looks so good. Potential unification could be his way down the road before the end of the year, if not early next year. Certainly revitalize himself. Um, um, and with Canelo, I know he's supposed to come back later on in September against Mbili, but Alvarez is on the downslide of his career. I think for Munguia, there are some very entertaining possibilities, and for him to do some real damage at 168, particularly if he continues to perform in the way that he did against Resendiz, because I'm with you, Gail. Where was this Munguia all along? Um, I'm surprised. I'm just as surprised as you in terms of how good he looked. Let's get to some news here, Daniel. And during the past week, Top Rank announced doubleheader, July 4th, Independence Day, quote unquote, in Cleveland, as Cleveland's own Abdullah Mason returns to make the first defense of the WBO lightweight title against former 130-pound champion Joe Cordina. Co-main event, Shushu Carrington making the first defense of the WBC featherweight title against Rene Palacios. Overall, I like this card. A lot of people will consider Mason and Carrington as the heavy favorites. I get that, but yet and still, particularly when it comes to Abdullah Mason, if Joe Cordina is right, okay, He's had some tough losses, but they were down at 130 pounds where he was struggling to make weight. He's a adequate boxer, right? And it would say a lot about Mason if he dominates Cordina coming up on Independence Day. I'm interested in that fight in particular, just to see how the 21 going on 22-year-old Mason looks and how much improvement we see from him coming off that Noakes fight and him being a champion now, with the old adage being that you get 25% better once you win a world title.
This is, first of all, a fight on the 4th of July. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, luckily, they're also going to have it.
And it's going to be on both the Zone and TNT. So that's another bonus.
Yeah, it is the first card in the monthly series. TNT is going to produce, and they're calling it The Fight. Kind of a bizarre name for the series. But this is going to be the first card on linear television in close to a year in the United States. We have got to root for its success. This has got to work. Put get whatever you use to generate good luck. Is it your rosary beads? Is it your voodoo doll? Do you burn incense? Whatever it is.
Absolutely. Side note.
And if you're a DAZN subscriber, watch it on TNT if you can. They need to see those numbers and be rewarded for doing this. So I'm going to beat the drum for this right up to July 4. Make sure everybody's watching.
It has more
hopeful. It's a hopeful development.
This has more to do than just boxing itself when you really think about it. But the trend now, there is a trend, sadly, as the United States no longer the epicenter of the sport. I'm not talking about just the fighters. I'm talking about media as well, where we see fights, where fights are happening, because of factors that has more to do than boxing itself. The United States is not the fave of the boxing community or the boxing public, right? Don't need the U.S. necessarily for big fights anymore. Not as much as you did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So to Gail's point, if you care anything about the future of boxing in the United States from a venue perspective, from a television perspective, you should hope that this is a good card, that the promotion for this card is up to snuff, and that people have their eyeballs on TNT come July 4th. I'm sorry for interrupting, Daniel. Talk about this upcoming card, please.
Oh, no, absolutely no problem. Because I was going to suggest a little different, Gail. If you're a DAZN subscriber, watch it on both DAZN and TNT. Watch it on both. Because first, if you get the TNT numbers up, that'll help out, particularly when it comes to the state of Warner Brothers Discovery. We have to mention they are in the middle of merger talks with Paramount, Skydance. So you might want to leave a little bit of good impression for the new owners, especially when those new owners may be more or less aligned with the Zuffa side than anything else. But on the other end, we got to talk this fight. For Abdullah Mason, this is a really, really good test because, yes, Joe Cordina has had some tough losses. He's also had some really crazy upset wins in his career. And he's cut from that UK, British, in this case, Welsh type of fighter that he's going to make it a tough out. And that's the perfect type of fighter you want to have when you want to assess somebody like Abdullah Mason as a champion, particularly in the weight division that is as quote unquote volatile as the lightweight division is right now. So That's a really, really good showing. And interestingly enough, the other fight, like you mentioned, with Shushu Carrington, that fight is also very, very interesting to me because the person that we talked about in the beginning at the top of the show, Naoya Inoue, one of his possible moves is a move up to featherweight. And Chushu Carrington would be a pretty decent opponent to be put into that area. Him, Brandon Figueroa, maybe even Ray Vargas. So that could be also a semi audition for a possible Inoue fight. So this card has a lot of potential. Folks, watch it. If you have the zone, if you don't have cable, watch it on the zone. If you have cable, watch it on TNT. Put on both if you have to. Put the zone on the laptop and put TNT on the TV. Watch how it is, and then also watch how the presentation is going to be on both sets. Because even though there's two fights, it's going to be two different products. If you see a lot of eyeballs on TNT and they don't have a really good presentation compared to what they had the zone, that'll push it to make sure that the presentation next time is a lot better.
And Carrington has been talking about his wanting, has not been shy about his desire for a fight with Inoue for a couple of years now, and he certainly did a lot of chirping on Twitter in the aftermath of Inoue's win over Nakatani, claiming that you see why I want to fight him so bad. Joining the group who was highly critical of Monster Inoue, right? So that's certainly he has eyes on a fight with Inoue, provided he can make weight, because I contend that making 126 pounds is not the easiest for him. Overall, a good card. Let's hope. Let's hope. Uh, let's hope this is successful across the board, right? Also, this upcoming weekend, you mentioned Angela Leo, um, who has the IBF belt at 126 pounds, right? Upcoming fight, upcoming title defense against Raisa Aleem. Raisa Aleem has been around for a minute, Gail. Um, Angela Leo, he was a former champion. I think he was the guy that Fulton beat for the belt at 122 pounds. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do I put Leo in the same category as a Carrington or a Rafael Espinoza? No, I don't. But at the same time, do I think he has enough to beat Raisa Aleem? Yes. Your thoughts?
I think Angelo Leo has always been an underrated talent. He seems to be the guy that everyone forgets. On the other hand, Rais Aleem, again, same thing. He has been grinding away, putting on good performances, not always coming out a winner, but never looking terrible. So it's an interesting matchup. It matches up two guys who have both needed, more of an opportunity. Um, Thankfully, Leo is one of those fighters that's benefited from the pro box circuit, right? Where a lot of guys do put on great performances, they do excellent matchmaking, and has benefited from those opportunities. But this is his opportunity, as it is Aleem's, to prove what they've got. They've both been on these interesting parallel tracks. Well, now the tracks are crossing, so this is the time to step up for both of them. I give the edge to Leo in this one, but if Aleem is capable of a surprise, that I wouldn't shock me, and good for him.
I just think that when it comes to Aleem, there's something missing when I see him. It's not that he's trash fighter, um, but I don't see A level. I don't see B plus level, right? And Leo has the experience of winning a world title, and if you remember how he won that belt, that IBF belt, he can pull it out the mud with one punch. I don't see that aspect of Aleem. Leo has shown that uh, when the chips are down, he has the qualities to come back and win and pull out the fire. Something I have never seen in Aleem whenever he's faced his toughest competition. And because of that, that's why I give the advantage to Leo. That fight between Leo and Aleem is going to happen also this coming Saturday. Also on the zone. Interesting location in College Park, Georgia, in the Atlanta area, right? Last fight we're going to talk about before we begin to close things down. Happening over in the UK. Fabio Wardley, he defends his heavyweight. He defends a belt at heavyweight, WBO belt at heavyweight against former champion Daniel Dubois. Daniel, Dubois' attitude leading up to this fight, interviews, right? He's been very short, very cantankerous, ornery. What do you make of it, right? Against a Wardley, I still don't know what to think of him, right? When he fought, what's the guy named Humi? He was behind on all the scorecards before One Punch KO got the win. Fought Joseph Parker, was behind before he rallied and got the win. Dubois at its best, the argument can be made, Daniel, that Dubois is a better fighter, but given his disposition leading up to the fight, I just don't know of his mindset against a Wardley who, whatever you think about him, he's tough, he's rugged, he's durable, he has power, and I think from the intangible perspective, I give the edge to him.
This is an interesting fight because it can, in ways, it can be considered a crossroads fight. And I can get where Dubois is coming from because we have to remember not only, him giving at the time Usyk probably his toughest test to that point before losing. And yes, we all know the quote unquote controversy in that, to him getting that upset knockout over Anthony Joshua when he was supposed to be the stepping stone for Joshua to get back into the title picture. When he had that happening and then have Fabio Wardley pretty much almost do the exact same thing in a faster pace, you kind of feel being replaced because remember that fight with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker did not need to take that fight. Joseph Parker could have waited until he got that WBO mandatory against Usyk. And if Usyk would have dropped that belt, then he would have gotten the WBO belt. I think this is a situation where Daniel Dubois is seeing how fast the heavyweight scene is moving and how fast he can be replaced as a potential heir to Usyk. Because until somebody beats him and beats him decisively, Usyk is still the top of the division. Undisputed or not. And that's going to fall in line with a lot of what's happening because Fabio's coming in right now with all the confidence in the world. You look at his interviews, he's confident. He feels that he can come back from anything, and that's presented when it comes to the ball. And not to mention also as well, there is that little sister syndrome that you can say happening with Daniel because His sister Caroline may be getting a little bit more shine now compared to him. Similar situation to the Fondoras. So that could be playing a factor into it. I don't know if it'll be factor enough for this fight. Now, granted, Joseph Parker has a lot more experience than Fabio Wardley when they fought. But I think that extra chip that Dubois is going to have in this fight, where he's literally staring at what could be was essentially his replacement on the domestic scene in the UK. He may take that a little bit personally, and he may be able to pull out a performance on it, because I do expect him to win. Because that pedigree is still there, and there's still that fortune, that question mark to me with Fabio. There is still that question mark to me.
Despite my questions about both men, Gail, from entertainment value, I think this has the potential to be a highly entertaining fight. I expect to see a lot of healthy violence once the bell rings. Styles make fights, and the styles of both of these guys, it almost seems that you can't help but produce good action and plenty of leather landed by both men.
Heavyweights, big power, big guys, both need a win for different reasons. It's in the UK where the fight fans are absolutely rabid. What more do you want? Anyone that claimed to have been disappointed by Inoue and Nakatani, okay, you need to watch this and you need to trust me on this. It's going to be a one-punch knockout win for one or the other. And it's either going to be somebody making a brilliant move or someone making a big mistake. And you're right. Wardley is one of those guys that he can get behind on the cards, doesn't matter, doesn't care. In that way, he is a lot like Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder was never fighting to win on the cards. Deontay Wilder was always fighting to find his opportunity to put someone's lights out, and Wardley is the same. What's so unusual about Wardley is he comes at his craft, from some very orthodox positions, angles. He's hard to figure out, and that's what makes him effective. Dubois has simply become, a freight train coming at you. He has a good chin. That's going to help him a lot in this contest. At times he looks brilliant. At others, I think just something happens, a wire short circuit for him in his head or something. So the uncertainty and the 50-50 nature with the, scorecard erasing power, it's going to make for a darned entertaining contest. And I'm going to make sure I'm there from the opening bell, because it could end quickly. It could take a while. Who knows? But it is going to end before that bell. One way is that I think it's 30 seconds before the final bell in the 12th round, if it's a 12-round fight.
Yeah, folks. Yeah. Do not expect to hear judges' cards on this fight.
Yeah, judges, they're there, just for show, basically.
Indeed, and Wardley and Dubois is going to happen May 9th in Manchester, and on the zone. David Morrell is also fighting on this card. We will talk. I want to save that and talk about that next week, because I don't want the show to be too lengthy, and so I want to end things on that note, because no matter how far it goes, to Gail's point, this has all the makings of being a complete war that boxing fans should thoroughly enjoy. I want to thank everybody. I love the interaction and the engagement in the live chat this evening. Shout out to the homie B Marsh. Shout out to Lobster 11. Appreciate your comments. Shout out to Salem Mooney. I forgot his comments. He said before last week the most improvement that he saw when it came to Munguia was when Roach was training him. I pushed back against it a little bit because Roach is such an offensive minded trainer. And it was the defense of
Yeah.
Munguia and the transition from offense to defense and vice versa that was so impressive. He was very smooth in this fight.
Oh yeah,
When
that was
previously
that was
he's
pretty
just been all Munguia has been all offense and nothing else. You didn't see that in the case of his win last weekend. So that was made him like, oh, eye-opening performance for me. But I get your point. Appreciate your comments as well. For those who commented in the live chat, if you have not done so, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure you have so already to subscribe. That way you'll get notifications on all future episodes and shorts because I'm doing YouTube shorts now from each previous episode. I'm going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com and Gail Falkenthal on boxing for those who want to talk all things the sweet science. Let the folks know where they can find you.
The written content is at nyfights.com, nyfights.com. The video interview series is at Gail Falkenthal on boxing. And tomorrow I'm going to speak to veteran boxing writer Jack Hirsch, who has been a member of the Boxing Writers Association of America and its president for, I think, 6 terms running. He's a glutton for punishment, clearly. But it took him all these years to finally write a book. And he wrote the first authorized biography of Michael Spinks. And it is phenomenal. Just
Nice.
to finish reading it. It was with Michael's full cooperation, and there are some very interesting behind-the-scenes stories. He got a lot of people to talk to him, and that's the mark of a truly great reporter, is that you get those sources to trust you and open up. And I'm going to interview him tomorrow, and that interview will be up on the channel as soon as I can pop it in there. And I think we are all going to be treated to some really phenomenal discussion. And if you're a Spinks fan, hey, that can't miss. It's an interesting missing piece of our modern boxing history.
And for those who didn't catch it, brief recap of your interview with one Jamel Herring.
Oh my Lord.
Mr. Simplified.
Mr. Simplified, Jamel Simplified Herring, former champion, is now going to attempt to become a champion in a second combat sport. He's gone bare knuckle, everybody. And he is fighting for the bantamweight championship in bare knuckle. Bare knuckle does very similar to mixed martial arts. They've got just the original 8 weight classes. And that discussion is up on the channel. The fight is next weekend on May 22nd. At Acrisure Arena in Palm Desert. So if you're in Southern California and you have a mind to go check out what bare knuckle is all about, there's your chance, but it will also air on the Zone.
And go to you, Daniel, from For Boxing News and the Inscriber. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk coming off of a WrestleMania recently, for those who want to talk all things Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
You see the socials there, folks. Rocks99 on Twitter, Blue Sky, Counter Social, IG, anywhere they pretty much have a social media platform. I make sure to have that name on there. But definitely say catch me on there because obviously we had a really, really good fight weekend. Hopefully the calendar starts picking up. And not to mention, like I said, there's also moving things around in wrestling world, like I said, and hopefully we talk a lot more about that in the future, folks. And I'm probably going to make this a semi-weekly thing. Call your senators, call your reps. There's still support on this, but I'm going to beat the drum on this because it is how much danger is. Make as much case as possible to have the against the new Ali Act. Push for no. And if you want a reference, there's a video by a good actually YouTuber called Napoleon Bonaparte says that you don't hate super boxing enough. I suggest people watch.
Duly noted. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance with me, you know what it is. Uh, at Brother Jr 76 on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. You can check me out on IG, um, Brother JR SC. Also on Blue Sky at Brother JR SC. And as I said earlier in the show, Pound for Pound Boxer Report is now officially a couple more responses by B. Marsh. You got to get that book on Michael Spinks. So do I. Interesting. The Jinx Spinks is my favorite light heavyweight fighter of all time. I can understand that. Ezra Charles is my personal favorite at 175 all time, being the old school head that I am, but I get it. Michael Spinks was dominant at 175 pounds. As I said, Brother JR 76, you can check me out on Twitter. Brother JRSC on IG and Blue Sky, in case you want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance with me. And as I said earlier in the show, yours truly, Pound for Pound Boxer Report, are now an official affiliate with Nazar Fragrances, NAZAR fragrances. While I run my mouth here, I'm going to put this up right quick. Give me a quick second, y'all. I am an official affiliate with Nazar Fragrances. Michael WP4P is the official discount code, and you can get 15% off on anything, any and all fragrances, be it full bottles, be it fragrance oils, be it travel sizes. He's also coming up. Nazar Fragrance is also coming up with a discovery set soon. Should happen within the next month or so. So yeah, discount code. Putting it here in the chat. Again, yeah, Navarre Fragrances, Michael W. Whoops, excuse me, wrong code. P. Michael WP4P, that should be. I'll put it again, Michael WP4P. For if you want to check out any and all things Nazar Fragrances, I'll chop that up and I'll put that right quick. My apologies, y'all. There it is. There's the correction right there. Again, Michael Nazar Fragrances. You can check them out, nazarfragrances.com, and the discount code MICHAELWP4P. Really good stuff. Whether you're looking for straight masculine leaning fragrances, more feminine leaning fragrances, unisex. Performance goes nuts on it. 50% oil concentration. So on a lot of their fragrances, so it will last literally all day long. On the next episode, Pound for Pound Boxer Report, we will have a recap of the heavyweight title bout. Fabio Wardley defending the WBO heavyweight title against former champion Daniel Dubois. That's going to happen in Manchester, England. Don't miss that one. Should be plenty of excitement. Also, College Park, Georgia. On the undercard of Fabio Wardley and Dubois, David Morrell is fighting fighter by the name of Chelli, Zach Chelli, Chelli. My apologies for the mispronunciation. We will do a recap of that. Also do a recap of Angelo Leo defending the IBF featherweight belts against Rais Aleem. And also the doubleheader, not the what I'm saying, that's going to be in July 4th. So we will talk about those bouts. We may talk a little bit Shane Mosley Jr., who's fighting on the following day, on the 10th, um, in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if we'll have time to get to that, but we will. But if we don't, we'll definitely do a preview of the return of Keyshawn Davis rematch with Nahir Albright. That's going to be May 16th in Norfolk, Virginia. On the undercard of that, the return of Brian Norman, coming off of his loss to Devin Haney last November, return to the ring against Josh Wagner. Kelvin Davis is also fighting on that card. And Dave Allen, Philip Hergovich. That should be another entertaining bout, low key. That's also going to be in England, on the zone. So we will preview all of those fights. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. If you're not done so, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm really pumped, excited about the interaction between the in the live chat this evening. And last thing here before we leave, if you're interested in getting that Michael Spinks book, here is the link provided by Gail. You can get it over at Amazon, and there's the link right there. And I'm gonna leave this up until we sign off. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Plan to get it plan to try to get it myself. So there you go. The link to the book, upcoming book, the biography of Michael Spinks. So for everybody in the chat, for Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 485 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.